Do you know the scary story about the tunnel? What? The tunnel? There's been some scary stuff going on down there lately. What happened there? What do you mean? Is it haunted? It'd be nice if it was just ghosts. Once you enter that tunnel, you can't get out. People who somehow manage to get out eventually die. And all those people kept saying the same thing before they died. I'm being chased by a monster with a flower on his head. Oh, come on. It can't be. It's all lies and provocation. Do you really believe that? Said the girl. Yes. It's true. Yeji from 7th class has stopped going to school this year. Everyone says she went crazy after going into that tunnel. Aren't you interested? Don't you want to go? She wanted to invite Oppo and his company, and wanted them all to go see the tunnel together. The girls said they should go without her. She's busy today. A boy came up to the girls and asked them if he could open the locker. But they started shouting at him. What are you walking around for? Can't you see we're talking? You're making me so angry. The guy didn't say anything back, just apologized. Her friend asked her who was he. It was a ghostbuster. Wow. What's with that famous murder case? Crazy gives me the creeps. The girl remembered. An idea popped into the girl's head. She put her hand on the boy's shoulder and asked him if he liked horror stories. What? A tunnel with monsters? They wanted to take the boy to the tunnel and wanted him to go in there. He got confused and started saying he didn't think he could. But she started yelling at him again and saying if I said so, that means you're going in there. Whether you're sure or not. And told the guy to look at her. Or are you blind? He started laughing and saying he was a weird loser. He didn't make eye contact. He just couldn't look into the eyes. Because he couldn't see them anymore. How did it all come to this? At some point, the guy started to get really scared of interacting with other people. The girl told the ghost to go to the tunnel after school. Just as he was about to agree, a girl came into the classroom and asked what they were doing. They didn't understand who it was. She walked up to the girl and hit her. Hit her hard and she got angry. She said she saw them bullying her little brother. What? Your little brother? Are you his sister? Asked the girl. That's right. I've been your sonbei since I was 3 years old. She said that they didn't hurt him, but she didn't believe her. She took her brother by the hand and led him away. Unlike the boy, his sister was determined and confident. Her brother always admired her. His sister was the most precious person he could trust. Would he ever be able to be like her? At night, the girl who was abusing the boy found a sister who stood up for him. She was with the boy and he was afraid their parents would report them. She said he didn't have to worry about it and said she was an orphan. Her parents were dead. So she and her brother lived alone. This time she hit her. When she looked up at her, she hit her again, saying that she wasn't worthy to look at and that she had no manners. They led her to the tunnel and told her to go there, as she said she would go herself instead of his brother. The girl angrily said that her brother wanted to hide the fact that he was an orphan. And she started threatening her that she would tell everyone about him, and everyone would make fun of him. The sister didn't want her to do it and said she would go to the tunnel. The girl said she was stupid because she gets very weak when it comes to threatening her brother's life. She started threatening again and told her to go into the tunnel. At this time her brother was at home and he didn't understand why she was staying late. Usually, even if she came in late, she was always back in time for dinner anyway. He couldn't sit hungry any longer and decided to go and buy himself something for dinner at the shop. When he went outside, he saw hooligans on his way to the shop who were with her sister. He didn't understand why she was here. He saw that they were shoving her in a tunnel. He also remembered the story he had heard about the tunnel. Everyone who went in there was dying. He lunged at the bully and started screaming about what they were doing to her sister. But the girl's boyfriend pushed him away from her. They started laughing at him and saying he wouldn't do anything. They said he was already too late. After the next thing they said, he went and hit the guy with all his might. The other guys saw this and started running to beat him up. They started kicking him and told him nothing would happen to him. He was just pretending. The bullies threw him on the floor and asked him if he wanted to see his sister. And they started pushing him into the tunnel to see her and told him to find her himself. He went in and started screaming and looking for his sister. He started blaming himself that it was because of him that the bitch had come here, because he was acting like a jerk. He was very sorry. He had been walking down the tunnel for a long time and didn't realize if it was always this long. He saw someone and thought it was his sister and wanted to call her. But it wasn't his sister. It wasn't even a person. It was that monster with the flower on his head. Looks like the scare story was true. The sister came up behind him and started telling him to be quiet. She didn't understand why he was here. She said she would listen to his explanation later, but for now they had to get out of there. She didn't know why, but she couldn't see the entrance they had come in through. She thought they had to get past the monster and out the other side. It didn't seem to be able to see well, so if they could get past it without making a sound, they might survive. She told her brother not to worry and just follow her. He agreed and they started sneaking through the creature little by little. He didn't even notice them and they were almost through. But blood dripped on the boy's hand. He didn't know what it was. And he screamed. The monster heard him and asked who was there. His sister saw that his brother had been spotted and she picked up an iron stick and ran at him shouting, "Run!" But when she tried to strike, the weapon disappeared from her hands. It was something paranormal. She didn't know what happened. She looked at him and he started to raise his hand on her. All he could see was blood. It looked like she'd been murdered. The guy started blaming himself, saying it was all his fault. The blood that got on his face started to change its shape and started to mutate. The guy felt something on his face, but in spite of this he screamed at the monster to give it back as it was all he had. Next thing he knew, something was going on in his head. He saw his sister in his memories. Then suddenly the boy was on the floor of his house. He did not understand why he was home. Just a second ago he was in the tunnel and now he was home. He picked up his phone from the floor and saw it was 9:06. That was also the time he decided to go to the shop. He must have just fallen asleep and the whole horror was just a dream. Suddenly he started screaming very hard. He thought his head was going to burst. He quickly ran to the bathroom to look at himself in the mirror. When he started to look, he saw a flower on his face. A flower had grown on his forehead. Wasn't it all a dream? But then why was the guy home? And how did the boy go back for a few minutes? He didn't understand what had happened. He began to realize that if he had gone back in time, then maybe his sister was still alive. He ran outside without thinking. If what just happened to him was true, then he could have saved her. He had to stop her from going in somehow, so she wouldn't run into the monster that killed her. He ran outside and when he got to the place where her sister was, he really did go back in time. And there was his sister with the bullies. He started yelling very loudly for her not to go in there. The hooligans noticed the guy and didn't understand how he knew they would bring her there. The bully's boyfriend grabbed his little brother. He started saying he didn't have time to fight and that it was dangerous there. He'd do anything to get them to take his sister outside. He realized that he had to restrain himself even though they had done her sister. First he had to get her out of the sinkhole. When the boy tried to be polite, they only started to humiliate him more. A common cliché that has always appeared in novels or science fiction. The cliché was that if you take different actions from those taken before the news, the outcome would change. They started kicking him. His brother started saying that his sister was going to die in there. They didn't understand what was wrong with him. He replied that he just wanted to save her, and you stopped me so she would die, even though she didn't even do anything wrong. He said it was you who had to die. Scum like that should die, not my sister. On the guy's face the flower started to grow very big. When all the bullies saw this, they all started running away and screaming for help. The bully's boyfriend ran away, leaving her with him. The brother said he shouldn't have talked to him after all, because they weren't even listening to him. The girl started begging him for mercy. The guy started strangling her, saying the word die. Suddenly the girl runs up to him and pushes him into the wall. You can't just start strangling a man, she said. She was also with her friend. The girl with the green hair started saying that she couldn't be defeated that easily. Again her brother began to block the way. He began to emerge from the shadow of ashes, saying that they too were scum. The friend began to say that he was in serious condition, and that if they left him like that he would soon be nothing but a shell. The guy started blowing black shadows. The girl said that the girl the guy was strangling had been moved to safety. And while you're at it, fix the other kid's memories because it's urgent, too. And she'll take care of the boy. She told her to remember that he's still human. The girl had a blue flower on her hand too. She started telling the guy that she didn't know what had happened to him earlier, but she was asking for forgiveness. And judging by his condition she would have to act a little harshly. The boy did not understand why she was doing this to him. It was the first time he had seen her. She told him that she wanted to save his sister. The girl told him not to use his power so much as to use it that way could really turn him into a monster. The boy tried to attack her but missed, which made him open to attack, and she tried to hit him with the weapon. But she failed too, and he managed to hit her. But after she fell, the girl said she would win anyway. She wanted to make an attack out of his sight, but she was very surprised when she realized that he had blocked her attack. The guy reacted instantly. She couldn't believe it. Even though he had transformed, his reaction speed couldn't have increased to that extent. This seemed to be the guy's new ability, the ability to anticipate his opponent's attacks. She said he had an interesting ability, although there was nothing complicated about it. The girl said that depending on how you apply your abilities, your strength changes infinitely. The boy's face was already completely covered by the flower. People like him use only brute force without any practical application of ability, are very easy to overpower. Blower shouted for the boy to distract himself, and when he was distracted she threw an object at him. He easily dodged it. It seems that in addition to anticipating attacks, he also dodges them. Then the way to deal with him was simple. We had to create a situation in which he couldn't dodge even if he anticipated the attacks. The girl threw more than 10 knives at him at once, and when he was distracted by them she struck from below. He fell down and passed out. When he opened his eyes the boy was confused by what had happened to him. His body was aching, and the flower was no longer on his face. When the other girl came back, she didn't understand how she could have done that to him. She said he was like that from the beginning, and she only hit him once. When they noticed he was awake, the guy asked them who they were. "We're your saviors," they said. The guy didn't understand anything at all. Why he passed out, who these people were in front of him, and why he was in front of the entrance to this scary and dark tunnel. When he looked and thought about the tunnel his memories cleared up. When he remembered everything he quickly started running away from them as he thought he was there to save his sister. She was in the tunnel, he had to find her as quickly as possible. But before he could run a few meters, the guy falls down. It looks like he got really dizzy because they gave him the medicine. The guy could barely breathe, but said not to worry about him, he would be fine on his own. The girl asked him what had happened and if there was anything they could do to help. To him it sounded like they could help. Up to this point he had lived without knowing what help from other people was. But in the end he started to tell that in this tunnel the monster with the flower killed his sister or will kill her. He could not believe his own words. However, he was not lying. It was him, they whispered. So he has been hiding here. The girl put her hand on his shoulder and told him that they believed him and they were looking for the creature themselves. They promised him they would be sure to find his sister. The boy didn't understand how the hell she could believe him even without knowing anything. However, they didn't see anything in the tunnel. Not his sister. There was nothing there. The guy was sure he was here and the top was full of corpses, but they said he wasn't mistaken. It was evident by the unnatural clippings of blood all around. It looks like he heard them coming towards him and ran off. The crack that was left there was proof of that. So space travel was his superpower. What about my sister? The boy asked. They were silent and he began to think that she was dead. But they said it was too early to tell. And these traces of blood did not appear today. The girl said it's possible your sister got transferred in the process of moving the shell, too. So you can think of it as false hope, but using such a powerful ability is very draining, so they won't be able to hurt anyone for a while. The boy rejoiced and said then we must hurry, but he was told that it would not be wise. Because you're in a very serious condition. But the guy said he was fine and nothing was bothering him. But the girl wasn't talking about the state of his body. She was talking about the state of his mind. If you go on like this, you'll turn into a so-called shell. She's referring to that monster they saw. That creature was consumed by trauma. The monster was without any emotion, it was just shut down. And you almost lost your sanity not too long ago and almost turned into a shell. But the boy didn't remember that. Just because she said he would turn into this monster. She said they used the tranquilizer they had with them and it was a temporary solution. Because if you lose your mind again you may never come round again. One of the girls apologized to him for promising him so much that they would save his sister. But right now, keeping you safe is our priority. And they said let's find your sister after you're stabilized. But the guy said I go anyway. He said his sister is all he has. And as long as she's in danger, he can't hang around. And this could be his last and only chance. The girl put her head down and said he didn't understand them. Even though we found traces of his movements, but how are you going to search the whole town alone? Even if you're lucky enough to find him, are you sure you can win a battle with him and his powers? She told him to listen to her carefully. What you're showing now isn't courage. It's just dust. She said that it might be too late because she might already be dead. That monster's attack could have already torn her body apart. And her body would not even be identifiable. She asked him if he could bear it. Another girl grabbed her and told her to slow down because she understood that she didn't want to let him go, but this was too much. She asked her why she was trying to take her frustration out on someone else. During their conversation, the guy stood up and said what he admits he's afraid of. But he has to move on. Because that's where his family is. He also said that a miracle won't happen if I do nothing. And even if I regret it, I still want to do something. The girl told him that he was crazy. What about the next one? The problem right now is that our interests don't have any common ground, right? We need to follow you like a ticking time bomb and you just want to save your sister as soon as possible. In that case, they only have one option. They'll follow him. The other girl was telling her that she was crazy. The girl with the green hair added. If you promise me that you won't be consumed by trauma until you find your sister, I won't stop you. However, if in the process you lose your sanity and your mind and become a shell, I will kill you without any thought or pity. Can you promise me that? I promise, the boy answered. They went in search of the monster. It had been 2 hours since they had gone in search of the boy's sister. They had already found 8 places with crack marks through which the monster could have escaped, but the monster itself was nowhere to be found. Every possible alleyway, abandoned building, underground. They searched every place they could. It looked like they would now have to search all the most likely places for it to live again. She asked the boy if it was okay that he hadn't contacted his parents yet. They must be worried about you. He said it's okay, they died a long time ago. What? For what reason? They were killed as brutally as possible, to the extent that their bodies were very difficult to identify. However, there was no trace of anyone else at the crime scene. All the suspects were released because no one had any evidence. The absurdity of the case led people to wonder if ghosts were involved. Our aunt helps us a lot financially, but it's just the two of them now. He said he didn't want to lose his family anymore, and so if he lost his sister now he would have no reason to live. The girl took his hand and said that we would find him no matter what it cost us. Whatever it takes. They wanted to start all over again. But suddenly they heard a girl screaming that she had made a mistake and to be rescued. The guy said it was her sister's voice. What? A voice? But the girl didn't hear anything. He definitely just heard her scream. She said he was just hearing things. No, he was sure he didn't hear it. He was sure it was coming from the other side. But there was a mountain on the other side. Then the girl said that she thought opening up the shell space was unsuitable. Or maybe this mountain is actually a closed space in itself. That's why he could hear something. As expected, when they got closer they saw that there was something there. They didn't even know what was there. It looks like this monster was moving all over the city from here. It was like moving between several woven webs. The boy already wanted to go there and check it out. But she told him to wait because the monster knew we were approaching the tunnel beforehand and escaped. So when they get closer now, it'll see them again and might run away. The boy said they had to catch it before it escaped. He said he would go first and get his attention. The lad thought that if a tasty prey like himself fell into his hands he would have no reason to run away. The girl told him that she had already told him that you are now like a time bomb. That's why she can't trust him to let him go there. She said she brought him here on the condition that he be watched from the outside. And anyway, how do you want to grab and hold this monster? The girl said that the best thing to do would be to cut off all escape routes and then capture it. The girl picked up the phone and wanted to call for backup. She said it would take a while, and it was the safest way she could be. She said she would call and come back, so he had to wait for her for a while. But suddenly there was a rumbling noise coming from inside that building. He said sorry and started running towards that building. He ran as fast as he could. When he arrived he opened the doors and heard that it smelled just like the tunnel, and then he saw a guy holding his sister in his arms. He said he would never have imagined that any human being would come to such a remote place. He did not understand who it was and where the monster was. He shouted to his sister, and then the guy realized it was the girl's younger brother. He said one test subject was enough, and no matter how much he wanted him, he wouldn't need him. Suddenly huge and sharp claws started popping out of this guy. One hit him in the eye. He started getting very dizzy. He couldn't think of anything. And he heard a scream come to his senses. Suddenly a girl comes flying out.